7 degrees, 11 in the morning. It could only be London, and there's only one person I want to talk to in London right now, and it is James Campbell, normally of the Melbourne parish and the Herald Sun, but he's doing so there. And I tell you what, the tweed jacket looks good. He's about to go fox hunting later in the day, but in between we'll talk a bit of English election. How are you, mate? How's it? What's it like to be on the other side of the world for a big election?
It's beautiful. It's beautiful weather. It's a lovely clear day, but cold, cold, cold. Yesterday we went up to Lincoln, and it was just another 4 or 5 degrees colder than London. I keep pondering what this is going to do to the turnout. I mean, you're really going to have to be keen to go and queue up to vote in December in Britain.
So can I ask the dumbest question from the Aussie on the other side of the world? The further north, the colder it gets, and does that mean that there's a disproportionate effect on the Labor seats in the north? Scotland, where the SNP is there, if the weather matters, does it matter in one place in particular?
Well, it's a very good question, and the answer is we don't know, because they haven't had a winter election in Britain since 1974. They haven't had a December election since 1923. So if you're a British pollster, you know, your special sauce, the thing that you earn your money for, is not just asking people how they are going to vote. It's working out or trying to guesstimate whether or not they are actually going to get off the couch. You know, in Australia, because we've got compulsory voting, you, up until recently, if you weighted the sample correctly, you could be pretty sure how people were going to vote. Here, you've got to do that, and then you've got to try and, you know, make a decision about the likelihood of their, you know, actually making it down there, because there's no pre-poll here. Postal votes are not as popular as they are in Australia. So we're really flying blind, and there's a general admission that the models could all be wrong. Even so, if you look at the final polling today from YouGov, we're now in the zone of a statistical error, a normal sampling error, a normal statistical error of Corbyn denying Johnson a majority. It's really been quite an election.
So let's talk about where you went and hung out and had a chat to some voters, and we've got some tape, and thank you very much for helping us out with that. Where did you go?
We went to Lincoln, which is in the Midlands. It's in Lincolnshire. It's not far from Grantham, where Margaret Thatcher was born. Now, it's a market town. It's a university town. Why I picked it because it's it was a seat that the Labor Party won in 2017 off the Tories, and the Tories are trying to get it back. So it's a seat that, you know, will go blue if it's on for Johnson tomorrow night. And it was interesting talking to people in the street. They're very polarised here, far more polarised than I've seen in recent Australian elections. People genuinely do not like Jeremy Corbyn. A lot of people don't like him, and the sort of visceral antipathy that they express for him is something you never saw for Bill Shorten at the last election in Australia. And likewise, there's a lot of eye rolling about Johnson. You know, people seem to be aware of his shortcomings. They're going to vote for him, I think, a lot of them, but they're not under any illusions about the bloke's character. You know, he's got some issues on his docket, but you know, when the alternative is Corbyn, who a lot of people really, really dislike, you know, they're going to hold their nose and they're going to vote Tory. Yeah, there's an amazing piece of vision that's just gone to air on Sky News UK that I'll show everyone after we've finished this conversation about what it's like to go walking around the northern parts of England with Labor people, and about the actual reactions they're getting about Corbyn, and it is exactly as James describes. Let's have a look at some of that conversation that he had with voters in the old dial.
Obviously, no one in their right mind would vote for the Labour Party with a madman like Corbyn in charge.
If Corbyn gets in, it will be a disaster. Anyone who's working class that doesn't vote for the Labour Party is slightly, you know, difficult to understand.
I just feel that Jeremy Corbyn is offering a lot of things he can't provide.
Yeah, well, that's be Boris. There's no one else.
I've never voted anything different. I mean, I've always voted Labour.
That's between me and the ballot box.
I don't really know too much about it. I need to do my research. Yeah.
So let's get to this, James. Let's get on the pot. What do you think's going to happen here? Do you think that the late breakers break and it's Johnson with a clear minority, or what the hell is about to happen?
Well, all right. I reckon they'll get a majority. Everything seems to point to that. The Lib Dems have flopped, which for various reasons is going to mean not much is going to change in the southeast and London. The Tories are doing very well in Wales, apparently. They've got 8 seats there. That might jump to 16. Scotland, which was looking really bad for them at the start of the election, is coming good. So there's now a view that they're quietly confident that they will hold most of the 13 seats that they won there last time. They went from 1 to 13 in 2017. The big mystery box is what's going to happen in what we're calling the red wall. That is the seats in the north of England and the Midlands that have always been Labor, but voted Leave in 2016. A year later, Theresa May tried to convert these Leave votes into Tory votes. Didn't happen. They remained a lot more Labor than they were Leave. The question is, what's going to happen this time? And until a few days ago, it didn't look much like there was going to be a real change up there. But just in the last sort of 24 hours, there started to be a lot of reports that that sort of hostility to Corbyn is really starting to bite. The Financial Times this morning is reporting that it looks they think it's more likely than not that there'll be a big Tory breakthrough there. Now, if that doesn't happen, I still think Johnson will win. It'll be a smallish majority, but it'll be a workable one. He'll be able to do what he wants to do. But if there's if what is happening on the ground in the north of England, we think's happening happens, it'll be big. It could really blow out. And the newspapers have come out this morning. I mean, I'll show you some of the front pages if you've got a second. They're really quite something. Britain doesn't really have newspapers; it has viewspapers. So the Mail: don't sleepwalk into catastrophe. You must use your vote and stop us plunging into the greatest crisis since the war. No doubt about what that one's on about. Good. The Sun: Boris ticks all the boxes. We're loving Boris down there. Sort Brexit, NHS billions, low taxes, keep us safe, Corbyn out. No doubt about that. Now, the Mirror, in Britain, they actually have tabloid papers that are pro-Labor, if you can imagine such a thing, Paul.
Disgrace.
It's a very different country. Last 2 days, they had sick kids on the front to try and focus the Labor voters' minds on, it's a get out the vote operation. And this is the thing, in the last 24, 48 hours, they're not really in persuasion mode in Britain. They're in get off your couch mode. So Labor's gone back to the NHS, which is their kind of safe space, the thing that they know most motivates the basic Labor voter. Today, though, they've gone with something a bit weird. They've got the father of the poor lad who was killed in the recent stabbing, and they're accusing Johnson of attempting to exploit it. Went to the headline, new Tory low. But you open the paper and you go through it, and there's page after page of people who've had dreadful experiences with the NHS, which of course in their minds are totally down to the Conservative Party. So you can really choose your poison when it comes to newspapers in Britain. It's what makes it such a great place to work in them, I imagine. Well, it's why I'd love to see, an editorial from the Page 3 girls, but alas, they are no longer part of the game over there. Thank you, James. We're going to see you plenty over Sky. No, they're there. They are there. They just don't have a view. They're there. They've just got their clothes on now. Oh, damn it. Thank you, James. James Campbell there, normally with the Herald Sun, soaking it up in the UK. He and Laura Jace doing an excellent job. You'll see plenty of them over the next couple of days. Geez, I love that bloke. And we'll